Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. I am so excited to share with you today about the 2025 HR trends for employers. And as we go ahead and get started with today's session, I just want to make some introductions. And so for those of you I haven't met, my name is Jen Conway, and I am the HR sales manager for Coastal Payroll. And my team and I, we work together with employers to really help identify which of our HR services and or modules are going to be the most effective for them. And our goal at Coastal really is to be a resource to employers. And for that reason, we are so grateful to California Bank and Trust for allowing us to present this webinar in collaboration with them. We so value our partnership with you. And so with that, I would like to both thank and introduce Steve Stuckey with California Bank and Trust. So Steve, I'll go ahead and turn it to you.
Thanks, Jen. I'm Steve Stuckey, Executive Vice President and Head of Core Commercial Banking at California Bank and Trust. At California Bank and Trust, it is our fundamental responsibility to help our clients become more successful. We accomplish this by consistently finding ways to add value in the relationship. We provide the tools to help our clients build and grow successful businesses. We act as trusted advisors to help our clients make critical decisions. And we are a resource for information they need to handle the challenges they face every day. In this spirit, and on behalf of California Bank and Trust, it's my great pleasure to welcome you to today's webinar, HR Trends for Employers in 2025, which we are presenting in collaboration with our great friends at Coastal Payroll. Coastal Payroll is a San Diego-based company that we enthusiastically refer our clients to for their payroll and human resource needs. We find that our organizations are very culturally aligned. We both value relationships above all else, and we pride ourselves on providing the highest levels of service and responsiveness to our clients. Coastal Payroll's HR expert, Jennifer Conway, provides a wealth of experience in the challenges that employers face every day, especially in a tough market like California. I know that you will find the information she provides today very informative and thought-provoking. Now, I'd like to turn it over to Jennifer Conway.
Thank you so much for that, Steve. We really do appreciate it. And we are thrilled to be here today in collaboration with you to share information about the HR trends that we're seeing out there in the world. To that end, let's go ahead and take a look at what we're going to be covering in today's agenda. And we're going to kick it off by taking a look at the state of the world of work and really just get an understanding of why these trends are what they are. And I'll just go ahead and kind of give you a little scoop on this. You know, as we put together today's presentation, I did a lot of research, and this is really kind of a combination of the research that I had done, and you'll see that cited throughout, in conjunction with what our experience is. I really kind of pulled on what I'm seeing out there as I speak with employers myself. So we'll take a look at that state of the world of work. And then we're going to look at the trends themselves. So first and foremost, adoption and adaption of AI and automation. We're then going to talk a little bit about being intentional and brave with talent acquisition. And we'll talk a little bit about what being brave here means. Upskilling and then reskilling your workforce. Then revisiting your employee value proposition, your EVP, why that's so important. We'll then wrap it up with our final trend of data analysis and pivoting. And in any time remaining, I will do my very best to answer any questions that you may have. So please feel free to put those in the Q&A. You'll also be able to email us at the end. We'll put an email address out there if you'd like to email us. And we're happy to respond to you because as we all know, when it comes to an HR question, the answer always seems to be it depends. Just a bit of housekeeping. We will also be recording this session and sending out the deck. So thank you all so much. And let's go ahead and get started. Our kids were coming to us and asking us or telling me about ChatGPT, right? And I thought, what the heck are they talking about? And asking them questions about it. And now you fast forward, and the next thing you know, it's a business reality. We see AI everywhere. And then you layer onto that the fact that we have some shifting talent dynamics in the workforce. Believe it or not, we actually have 5 generations in the workforce now. Yes, we've heard that the boomers are retiring, and they are indeed at a clip of about 10,000 people per day. And yet we still have 5 generations in the workplace that all bring their own skill sets, their own needs. And we are now at a place that we need to recognize these changes in order to make sure that we have both a resilient and an engaged workforce. And the organizations that take a look at this and then put some strategies around them, those are the organizations that are going to really find themselves being able to thrive this year and then going forward. So let's look at the first trend, which is adopting and adapting to AI and automation. And before I get into some of the meat of it, we're going to look at a couple of stats. The first of which is that 76% of HR professionals fear falling behind if their organization does not adopt AI tech in the next 12 to 18 months. And yet, let's look at this next stat, which is that 41% of HR professionals feel they have the competencies to keep up with HR digital transformation. So this is putting HR in a tough spot because let's be honest, HR is really the entity that's kind of being tapped within the organization to create and then somehow deploy any kind of an AI strategy across the organization. So let's look at more detail here. And before we do, let's kind of address the elephant in the room, which is that love it or hate it, AI is a business reality. It is here to stay. And certainly there have been some concerns around it, and understandably so. But this is a reality that we need to address. And the fact of the matter is that while there have been concerns, the risk is no longer in using AI as much as it is in not using AI, because your competitors are using it. And frankly, if you are not, you are already falling behind. And so what you want to take a look at, I thought this was kind of interesting, I'll just share this with you, is that there is a business case for it. There was a recent study done that said that employee productivity and the quality of their work went up by as much as 40% when leaning into using AI. And what's been interesting is that in this same study, there were only about 12% of HR departments that had started to implement AI, as opposed to, say, for instance, marketing departments, which were using it more around 34%. And so what we want to do is embrace it. And when we embrace it, we in effect need to kind of unblock our AI blockers. And when you think about what are those blockers, there are really 2 of them. The first of which is fear. And the second is really lack of skill and knowledge. And I would argue that the fear really stems from that lack of skill and knowledge. And so that's what we need to do, right? We need to garner all the knowledge that we can. We want to learn about it. We want to read everything, take classes, engage experts, listen to podcasts, and start to dip our toe into the world of AI, right? Start to gradually use it yourself. See what kinds of rote or mundane tasks you can use it for. And as you do, start to pull along your team, right? Because these are the people that are going to not only help you develop your strategy, but they're also going to be the folks that are going to help you deliver it to the organization. And then in that strategy that you're creating, what you're really doing is you're starting to create a roadmap of when we're going to use it, how we're going to use it. And then it wouldn't be HR, right, if we weren't creating some policies around it. And I joke, but it is important. We need to put some guardrails around the safe and effective use of AI. And I thought I'd include this little factoid down here. I thought this was kind of funny, but also very telling. They're referring to it as the BYOAI phenomenon, right? Bring your own AI phenomenon. And it's been found that 3 in 4 knowledge workers now use AI at work, with 78% bringing their own AI without any official guidance. So it's not that your employees aren't using it. They are. They're just using their own and using it without oversight. So it is important that we start taking a look at this for our organizations. Okay, on to trend number 2, and this is being intentional and brave, and I'll explain that brave part with talent acquisition. And so, speaking about AI before this was kind of the perfect segue into this, because I almost feel a little bit, and you might feel the same way, that 2024 was kind of this year of, I'm excited about AI and I know it's coming and we're going to use it, but a little bit of paralysis by analysis and not necessarily sure how and where to use it. And certainly recruiting is one of those areas when it comes to your talent acquisition. But there have been some concerns around, okay, well, gosh, what tool do I use? How do I gauge if it's effective? And one that really resonated with me and might resonate with you is, well, gosh, if I lean too heavily into AI, am I and my organization now going to start to appear somewhat impersonal with my candidates, which of course you don't want, right? You're trying to attract people to your organization. And certainly, if you lean too heavily into it or start to mismanagement, you can undermine some of your recruiting efforts. But the upside is fantastic, right? There are a lot of benefits to be gained, not only for your candidates, but for you, for your hiring managers in leveraging AI in your talent acquisition process. So the encouragement is to do so and to be brave and take some calculated risk, educate yourself on how to leverage it, but then start to use it with human oversight. Obviously, one of the concerns we've all heard is that AI is going to take over the world. It's going to take over my job. No, this is where, particularly in recruiting, we need that human element of human resources, right? We need to have that oversight and that human element. And then obviously, if things aren't necessarily working, you can, course correct. That's fine. But this is where you do want to kind of be brave. All right, we wanted to take a look too at thinking about skills, not degrees. And we're going to touch on this in our next trend when we take a look at upskilling and reskilling our workforce, because the reality is there is a very big skills gap in the workforce. But what I thought was interesting here too is that this was actually one of kind of the trends or thoughts for 2024, but not everybody really got on board. I think this was this whole element of, we've always been thinking more in terms of experience, or certainly experience, but degrees. We now really do need to focus on what are some of the core skills that our organization needs. And what kind of popped up in a study that was done is that by Korn Ferry in this work trends report, is that only about 20% of employers kind of jumped on that bandwagon and started to really put an emphasis more on the skills. There are still a lot of fence sitters. It was about 43% of employers that are still kind of sitting on the fence. So I have a feeling this year, everybody's going to start to get a little bit more comfortable focusing on this. Next up, the EVP. And so we're going to talk a little bit about what the employee value proposition is and get a little bit more into detail later. But just to define it, your employee value proposition is really kind of, in effect, what you're promising candidates they're going to get from you as part of kind of their package and working for you, right? It's going to be a combination of the unique sets of benefits or rewards or opportunities that they have with your company. It's going to include things like their compensation. What's the culture? What kind of work flexibility do they have? What benefits do they get? It's kind of your promise that you're making to the candidates. What I'm referring to here when I say you want to be brave about it is that you want to be really honest with yourself. Is what we are promising authentic? Is it real? Is this something that we truly are, kind of walking the talk on? And then once you're kind of honest with yourself, you want to weave it into your entire talent acquisition process. One of the reasons I'm emphasizing this so much is because we are in a position now where employees know what they want, or I should say candidates. Candidates know what they want. They know what they're looking for in an employer. And frankly, they're researching these employers and they're comparing you. And so you want to make sure that you are putting your best foot forward, but also that it's legit, because it's very easy for these candidates to go online, right? And they go right onto Glassdoor and see what people are saying about your organization. And then finally, where possible, offer flexibility. And, I think we've all seen organizations that over, especially I would say the course of the last year, they've done what they can to persuade, cajole, demand, suggest that employees come back into the office. But the reality is that hybrid is kind of the new normal where it can be. We certainly understand that not every position, not every job is something that can be a remote or hybrid position. But this kind of work environment is in demand. For the most part, it's in many cases what candidates want. So what you want to do is take a look at, where is this a possibility within your organization, and does it make sense? And if it does, you might want to consider this as an option for some of your employees. And along that line, I will mention, I don't really see this. I know I said that some of this data was going to come from research and my own experience. In my own experience, I don't really see this one, but the 4-day work week gaining momentum. I was speaking with our chief human resources officer, and she did say that she has seen some of this. She did say that there are some employers who are really kind of testing this. And as she puts it, more news at 11. We'll see how this all plays out, especially legislatively, because apparently it was kind of tabled in March of last year. But the idea would be that you are trying to kind of compact more productivity into a shorter period of time, give the employees a little bit more recovery time. Sounds fabulous to me, but we'll see where that goes. So with that, we're going to go ahead and take a look at some technology that kind of addresses those first two trends that I just talked about. And of course, the example that I'm going to use is some of the technology that we utilize, which is iSolve. And so what I'm showing you right now is our applicant tracking system called Attract and Hire. And this is basically giving you the ability to lean on technology in your recruiting process. So you can post your jobs electronically, and then your candidates can apply online, and they can do that on their phone, their tablet, their computer. It's going to adapt to whichever device they're on. And then once they do, I'm just giving you an example here of how you can post to multiple job boards. In this situation, there happens to be over 4,000 boards available to you. Over 1,500 of them are free. And then you can also post to social media and to your career website, right? So right to your careers page on your website. And then you'll have a central dashboard from which to manage and see where all of your candidates are within the process. And your hiring managers, of course, can do the same thing. But the one little tidbit I wanted to share with you here is how you can incorporate AI into this process too. And this here is just an example of what we refer to as kind of a blind candidate match, where they're doing a skills assessment, right? We're not looking at the employee specific details really, other than some of their skills. And you can see here that it's kind of taking out the bias, looking at just that skills match. So this might make it a little easier for an employer to really put that emphasis on skills. And I can see that there's a 96% match here. Okay, so this is obviously a candidate that I might want to pursue. And we're back to the days of me seeing employers. In fact, I met with an employer yesterday who said I posted one job and I got 1,000 resumes, right? When you have a situation like that, you want a way to kind of winnow down to your very best candidates so you know who is worthwhile to have a conversation with. Okay, moving on to trend number 3. So upskilling and reskilling your workforce. And I'm going to just share some of the statistics with you around this. And I'm going to move our little faces over here. Okay, so first of all, 44% of workers' skills will be disrupted by 2030. 6 in 10 workers will require additional training by 2027. And actually, the World Economic Forum said that 50%, so 5 in 10, will require additional training by 2025. And here we are, right? So But I thought this next one was very compelling. 70% of company leaders see a skills gap having a negative impact. Leaders are recognizing that this is a need, that there is a skills gap and that something needs to be done. And then 60% of jobs will be automated or augmented, kind of back to that human machine collaboration. And I'll just share with you personally that as I was doing the research for today's session, you see all these different reports, you see everybody's take on it, depending on the organization and the studies. This was consistent. Everybody has their own spin on what the trends are this year. This one was consistent. This one is everywhere. Everyone agrees that upskilling and reskilling the workforce is a priority for 2025. And I will just tell you personally, anecdotally, this is what I hear every single day that I'm meeting with employers. This is inevitably one of the topics that comes up, particularly when it comes to leadership skills. And we'll talk about that in just a moment. But I did want to just emphasize this is a very commonly referenced trend. So I think I'm going to just put a little context around this here and say that I think for a long time, just historically, when you think about learning and development within an organization, it's kind of this component of HR. And in many ways, it's just been viewed as almost like a box to check. We are at a place now that you cannot continue to view learning and development as just a box to check. It now needs to be a core element of your talent strategy in order for you to be competitive as an employer. And so it's not like leaders aren't recognizing that this is a need. We just saw in the prior slide, the statistic that 70% of leaders are seeing that this is an issue, right? So, but I think what's happening is for many leaders, they don't know where to begin. And I just want to encourage you to know that you don't need to do a complete and utter overhaul when it comes to implementing learning and development in the organization. You can really just start to focus on some of the critical business or some of the critical skills that are going to have business impact. So you want to identify what those are, right? You want to do an inventory. So I thought I would just share with you that one of the reports, again, Korn Ferry and the Work Trends report, one of the things that they showed was that leadership skills topped the list at 69%. That is very much in line with what I'm seeing every day when I'm talking to employers. A lot of that comes from the conversation that it's usually around is, oh, I definitely need help with that. If we're talking HR, the conversation's more about, I want to make sure that they're not somehow inadvertently doing or saying something that's going to put the company at risk. However, on the leadership side, what they're saying is very often they may have promoted people into leadership positions that were really good at their jobs, but they just hadn't necessarily led people before, right? They just don't have experience in that. And so they do need just some upskilling in that area. And we'll talk in a moment about why that's so important. It is important that they understand how to have those people leading skills. But I also wanted to mention that when you're looking at the critical skills within your organization and trying to identify what those are, you're wanting to look at what has business impact. And when I say business impact, you're looking at things like what helps my business innovate, what helps my business grow. Those are the skills that you want to hone in on. But in that study, right behind leadership skills, it was technical skills, then communication skills, and then problem-solving skills. Okay, so next up, what I wanted to share is that a number of businesses are starting to get creative in the kinds of learning opportunities that they're providing. And so I just wanted to give you some examples of those. One of which is creating things like internships or apprenticeships, right? So that you can get some of that early career talent in the hopper. Taking a look at things like entry-level training positions, or even doing things like partnering with high schools to get some of that early talent again. You can be implementing things like a learning management system, lean into that technology. And I'll show you a little bit what that can look like. But you can utilize things like gamification that kind of keeps it fun for the employees. You can also lean into some AI there as well. And then finally, prioritize learning. And where I'm going with this is it becomes important, especially now, to create an entire culture of learning, right? You want employees and even candidates from the get-go as they're starting to enter your organization to understand that you indeed have an entire culture of learning, growing, because you want to demonstrate to those employees they have a long runway with your organization. And so to that end, you want to start communicating it early, right as part of the recruiting process. You can do things like offer personalized training. One of the ideas that I thought was fantastic was creating reverse mentorships. You think about those 5 generations in the workforce right now, and you're hearing a lot about pairing what's being referred to as kind of the silver worker, right? The older generations with some of the younger generations. Those older generations can not only share their experience, also some of their perspective, kind of work-life perspective, and the younger generations are very often bringing the older generations up to speed on technology. So that's also a fantastic idea. And then finally, just making sure that this kind of thing is being communicated throughout the lifespan of the employee. And there was a statistic that I thought was pretty interesting and somewhat almost funny that I'll just share with you. But this study showed that 67% of employees would stay at their job if they were given learning opportunities, even if they hated their job, right? That is pretty darn compelling. In effect, employees want to work for employers who invest in their future. Excuse me. So it's not really a surprise that you can see down here that this year, more companies are really putting an effort into kind of integrating their talent acquisition with the talent management, right? With that learning and development. So let's take a look, and I'm going to take a quick sip of water here. Let's go ahead and take a look at some technology around this. So what I'm showing you right now is an example of a learning management system. This is our learning management system called Learn and Grow Pro. And this is a way for you to deploy training electronically to individual employees or to groups of employees. So you can assign individual courses or course paths. It gives you the ability to upload your own content. So for instance, I've seen clients that might do an onboarding video of the CEO saying, welcome to the organization. We're thrilled you're here. This is our mission, vision, values. Maybe this gets assigned to everybody, but then you might have a course path for sales and a course path for marketing and a course path for engineering. Those are just kind of examples of how you can assign out courses. But in addition to that, you also have access to a ton of content. When I say a ton, you can see here that the day that I went in to take this little snapshot, there were over 93,000 courses available for the employees to take. And that's because we work with a content aggregator called Go1 down here that's giving you access to multiple LMS platforms. And here we go in terms of leveraging AI. Because there's so much content, you now have the ability to use AI to curate it. And so you have a search feature. You also have an AI kind of chat feature. And I'll give you some examples here. So I typed in leadership skills, and you can see here that over 1,000 different courses popped up. So I'm able to kind of go down the list here. If I want, I can drill down into different areas. You also have different playlists here if you wanted, where they kind of pre-package them for you. And I'm going to keep moving ahead here and just give you an example. These are some of the different leadership courses that pulled up that I could consider to assign to my employees. Or if you want, you can even give the employees the ability to kind of self-curate courses if you want to give them that ability. I also just wanted to share that this is an excellent way, even though we're talking about skills gap for kind of critical business skills, this is also a great way to deploy some of the state mandated trainings that are required, such as anti-harassment training for supervisory and non-supervisory employees, But I thought what I'd show you right now is something that's much more timely because many of us with any kind of California presence know that many of us have had to do the workplace violence prevention plan. This was due July 1. And part of being compliant with that is that not only do you need to create a plan that is specific to your facility, but you have to train the employees on the 4 types of workplace violence. And then on the specifics of your plan. And so this is a great way to do this. This is one of my favorite courses in that it does cover the 4 types of workplace violence. And then I thought I would just share that you have the ability to offer it in different languages. So again, another way of leveraging technology and AI within that technology to deploy training to your folks. Okay. Moving on to trend number 4, and this is revisiting that EVP that we talked about earlier, that employee value proposition. And so I've actually got a good amount to cover on this. And I'm going to just start it off by mentioning that there is a difference between your EVP, your employee value proposition, and your employee experience. And although they are very related, there are some distinguishing factors. Your EVP, which is kind of that promise to your employees about what you're offering them when they work for you, that's more strategic. It's something that the employer crafts, that they put together. The employee experience is much more experiential. It is much more about the employee's experience working for your organization. And so you want to think about it in terms of what is their day-to-day, right? So things like, what is their working environment? Are they working from home? Are they working from an office? What is their relationship with leadership? What are their interactions with other employees? What is the culture of your organization? What is that employee's sense of upward mobility and career advancement within your company? What are the daily tasks that they need to do? And what technology are they interacting with every day to get those daily tasks done? How do they feel working for your organization with all of that combined? And so the reason that I'm mentioning that you want to walk the talk is because you want to make sure that those 2 things are in alignment, right? It's one thing to promise XYZ. You want to make sure, is that indeed what the employee's experiencing? You want to kind of pulse check with these employees. Is this what they're feeling? Because that's really going to be what's driving retention and in many cases, kind of your brand awareness out into the world, which is going to affect recruiting. So you want to kind of check yourself on that. Not only is it legit, but is the EVP in alignment with the employee experience? Okay, these next 2 topics I'm going to kind of almost lump together. They're somewhat separate, but I'm going to lump them together a little bit. So there has been an emphasis, I would say, particularly since COVID, where so many people just kind of took stock, right? A lot of people gained a lot of perspective during that time frame. And there has been this sense of, I don't really live to work. And so in that, there also kind of came about this new sense of, I want to be viewed in an organization by my employer as a full person. I want to be looked at as a human. I want to know that my employer cares about me as a person and not just a cog in the wheel, right? And you'll sometimes hear this being referred to as whole person employment. So employees are really wanting to feel that you as the employer care about their physical, mental, emotional, social, and financial well-being. And so anything you can do to kind of demonstrate that to the employees can go a long way. And I'll just give you a simple example. It's an example that we see at Coastal. So Coastal put together a wellness program and they segmented it into these different aspects. And I can speak to the fact that right now we are in Fitness February at Coastal. Funny little story, when I interviewed with our CEO 5 years ago, it was in February, and in the middle of our interview, he has a glass office. Everybody in the office jumped up and started to do jumping jacks. And I was wondering what was going on. He said, it's Fitness February. In addition to that, we have done some things like we've brought in a chef, and the chef has taught us how to cook healthy meals. And we put together a coastal healthy cookbook of recipes that people contributed. We've had subject matter experts come in and teach classes on investing, on mindfulness. And it's just been a way for our organization to kind of convey to us that they care and that they are giving us these opportunities to learn. And so these are some things, just some ideas that I thought I'd share with you as well. Now, this also kind of ties into this next one. These bullets together, one thing that I like to emphasize, and this comes up frankly in a lot of the webinars that we host these monthly. But when you think about the 5 generations in the workforce, some of those chunkiest generations really at this point are the millennials and the Gen Zers, the Zoomers. And those 2 younger generations really prioritize not just pay, right? We always think about pay being the number one driver. They really appreciate this focus on total well-being. They also value what the culture is of their organization. Do they feel like they are doing some kind of meaningful work? They like to understand how they fit into the bigger picture, how they contribute. And then obviously we've talked a little bit about flexibility. So flexible work arrangements. So while pay is important, it isn't always priority 1, believe it or not. And so I share that with you because so often we might focus on the pay and the benefits, and those do matter, but you want to take into consideration all of these other aspects from a recruiting and retention standpoint. Of course, tied to that is being able to demonstrate to the employees that they do have a long runway within your organization, that they do have upward mobility in that career pathing. Now, this next piece is kind of interesting. So if you as an organization have any kind of philanthropy that you focus on, or any kind of corporate social responsibility program, one of the things that we just like to emphasize is that those 2 younger generations in particular also really value working for an organization that they feel does good in the world. So it does become important that this isn't something that you're just paying lip service to, that if you are going to kind of put this out there, that you can kind of back it up, right? That you are able to demonstrate to the employees, to candidates, kind of the world at large, what you do in terms of giving back. And so I'll give you an example in a moment of what that can kind of look like. But you do want to make sure that, again, it's not something that you're just kind of paying lip service to, that you got the proof in the pudding there. All right, addressing HR burnout. I am probably preaching to the choir for anybody here who is in HR, and I'm sure most are. HR has taken it on the chin since COVID, right? Burnout is real. COVID was no picnic. So not only were they contending with that, they were trying to keep people during that. They were also trying to find people, right? So if they were losing people, very often they were scampering to try and hire people. For the employees that stayed, they were dealing with the burnout of those people. And then you kind of fast forward. Oh, and not to mention that they were trying to help people work remotely. And now they're dealing with kind of this technological sea change and the changes in the talent dynamics. All of this to say that HR is burned out and they need tools and resources. And this becomes important, not just in addressing the needs that they as people have, right? Because they are burning out. They personally need some assistance. But you as the employer need to take this seriously, because if for some reason you are to lose the person responsible for your HR function, that means you are losing the resource that is attracting, developing, and retaining your number one asset, which is your people. And nobody can afford to lose that, right? So addressing HR burnout is priority. And then finally, in terms of providing support, you want to support those managers as well. So never before, I would say, have managers been as important as they are today, right? So you've got an environment now where people are expecting this kind of whole person employment. They want to feel like their organization, which for the most part is their interaction with their direct supervisor, that they care about them as humans. And so these people need upskilling, like we talked about earlier, and they need to have an awareness of how important their role is in maintaining those employees, because we've all heard those statistics and they tend to hover. I've seen 68%, 70%. They're always around that kind of 70% range, that when an employee leaves your organization, for the most part, 70% of the time, they're leaving that direct supervisor. So the more you can upskill and provide resources to those managers, the better. Okay, so let's take a look now at some technology around this. And so what I'm showing you right now is an example, again, of the technology that we utilize called Share and Performance. So this is kind of a combination of our engagement tool and our performance management tool. And just to give you a little taste of what this allows you to do, you can see over here that you can provide feedback to other employees, but it's also giving you the ability to share knowledge. You can build a knowledge database for the employees to use. You can praise people, kind of shout them out. This is helping with culture. You do have the ability to create groups. I saw some pretty clever ideas around that, especially during COVID. You saw things like Netflix bingers groups and coffee addicts, and but you can also create groups around, just for your executives that are locked down, just for them. You've also got the ability to post things like events. Like today with Coastal, we have an HR happy hour. I'm looking forward to that. And then you've also got the ability to do things like surveys. So back to really kind of getting a sense, keeping your finger on the pulse of how employees are feeling. This gives you that opportunity to make sure that you have an idea of what their employee experience is, and is it living up to that EVP. We can also take a look here at performance. Just trying to proceed my slide here. Okay, so this is our robust performance management module, and this gives you a taste of what you can do with technology here. And you, in effect, can completely configure this. So you can establish what your metrics are to measure the employees against. The employees can self-assess. The supervisors can assess. If you want, you can even do a 360 review and pull other people, even external folks, into that review. But once that employee has been reviewed and assessed, it's going to naturally kind of plot them here into this 9 box. And this 9 box is going to give you that ability to really kind of see and identify who the future leaders are within your organization. And when you think about future leaders and kind of the development or career pathing that you have for them, this is another way that you can lean on technology and kind of harken back to that learning management. And so as an example, what I'm showing you here is that you might have an employee that's interested in moving into management. And in that case, you might say, okay, I'd really like you to start taking an introduction to management course. You can assign it here. It provides the link that takes them directly to that course. So again, it's kind of this whole kind of holistic experience for the employees, demonstrating your commitment to not just learning and development, but career pathing in the organization. Okay. I get really excited about this one. This is one of our newest offerings, but this is what's kind of speaking to that corporate social responsibility aspect that I mentioned earlier. And this is called Giving and Volunteering. This is a module. We actually offer this for free to any employer who wants to utilize it. And what I love about this is this gives you as the employer the ability to showcase a philanthropy that's important to you, a philanthropy or charity that's important to you. But even if you don't, it's giving the employees access to over 2 million nonprofits, and it gives them the ability to give back to something that's meaningful to them, right? So you're really giving them an opportunity to give back in a way that supports what they believe in. And so just as an example, you can have them donate through payroll. You can have them donate via a credit card on a one-time basis or a recurring basis. It's going to provide them the tax documentation that they need when they go to complete their taxes. But back to the point I was making earlier about kind of that proof in the pudding, what I love about this is you have reporting so that you can see What percentage of my workforce has contributed, whether it be in dollars or in time, in volunteer time, right? And this is fantastic because this is something that you can use to reflect back to your workforce and even to your candidate pool about what you do as an organization. I actually presented this to a client that had about 400 employees, and I was presenting it to their benefits director. And she said, oh my gosh, part of the benefits package. And it was just a different take, right? This was being presented because this was being viewed as a benefit that they were giving their employees. We help promote how you want to give back to the world. So just a clever idea there. All right. Take a look at trend number 5 here. And so this is data analysis and pivoting. And I guess what I'll just say here, and again, I don't think this comes as a surprise to anyone, but if COVID taught us anything, it taught us that we have a need for a perpetual state of agility, right? We can no longer rely on anecdotal information or on reporting that just takes a look at back, what's been happening historically. We need to know what's happening now so that we can take quick and decisive action. And in some cases, leaning on AI, even take a look at what might be coming. So I wanted to share with you, and you may have heard this term. I've been hearing it everywhere. This was popping up in all my research, but data-driven insights. Data-driven insights is kind of the phrase that kept popping up. And you'll see here that a study that was done by Deloitte found that companies with advanced people analytics capabilities are 4.3 times more likely to outperform their peers. So I just wanted to give you an idea of some of the key areas that we're seeing people want to have these data analytics. So things like performance metrics, employee engagement, recruitment and hiring, and then workforce planning. And so I'm just going to give you a little taste of what this can look like. Trying to get, again, okay. So what I'm showing you here is an example of course, the system that we utilize, but this is called predictive people analytics. And what I love about this is that you get to pick, you get to totally configure this thing where you have an opportunity to identify what kind of data do I want to see, and graphically, how do I want to see it? And it creates dashboards for you so that you can very quickly have a graphical representation of the data right within your organization. It allows you to mine the data in your database. So this is just an example, but this is employees by ethnicity, compensation by gender, turnover by gender, comp in both of these here, right, by gender and ethnicity. Pretty important, especially for any of you with over 100 employees, right, that are doing California pay data reporting. So, this gives you the ability to take a look quickly at what your data is. And then if you need to take quick, decisive action, you can. It also gives you some predictive capability. So not only can I take a look at what's been happening historically, but what might be going to happen in the future if I continue on the same path. You can even, in some cases, do modeling. So I've seen it where we can do things like, okay, well, what if I were to give everybody a 1% bump in pay? What would that do to my retention, right? And you can start to see, and it can even in some cases give you some suggestions. But this is just an idea of how people are leveraging data and getting more proactive about mining what's happening right now and looking to the future so that they can make some strategic decisions around it. Okay, so I've wrapped up the technology side of things and wrapped up the trends. I just wanted to share with you a couple of things before we part ways to let you know that, when I was referring to HR burnout, one of the most common concerns or questions that I get is around needing incremental HR support. This is what I do all day, every day. And inevitably, what I'm hearing is that HR needs some kind of expertise, that they want to feel the peace of mind that comes with knowing that somebody is going to proactively make sure that they know what they need to do to be compliant and then help support them with it, and then help do a lot of that heavy lifting along the way, whether it is things like job descriptions, handbooks, ensuring that they're doing things like the anti-harassment, providing leadership training, weighing in on performance reviews, helping you leverage technology that we just looked at to be able to do them. Assistance with employee relations. Sometimes you just need that sounding board to be able to say, am I crazy, or is this how I should handle this? Or this is what I want to do. Is it legal? When it comes to talent acquisition, we talked a lot about that today, but doing things like job posts or preparing new hire packets. Being a strategic partner, you can lay out what are your strategic initiatives over the course of the next year, and what do I need to be thinking about from an HR perspective, and getting that guidance. Culture, tapping into that EX, that EVP, so what really are my employees feeling? Can you help me do some employee satisfaction surveys around that? But ultimately, really not only getting the guidance of a dedicated advisor, but that dedicated advisor can help you lean into the technology, some of which we shared today, so that you have your arms around everything HR-wise. So just know that that is an offering that's available to you. And then from a technology standpoint, we touched on a lot of this today. So for any of you who are interested in getting any additional information around what we talked about today, please just have a sense of confidence that we have different modules. We have technology that can support the entire continuum of the employee life cycle, from the moment that they onboard or even apply to your organization, all the way through to payroll, benefits, time and attendance, and then a lot of this talent management component that we talked about today with Share and Perform and Learn and Grow. And so with that, I am happy. We've got 8 minutes. I am happy to take any questions that we might have, but it doesn't look like we have any. So what I'm going to do is go ahead. I hope that means I answered everything throughout the whole presentation. But I'll just suffice it to say thank you very, very much for having me here with you today. I hope that you found today's session helpful. And if you do have any additional questions, I'm going to leave this here for you. You can feel free to send an email to connect@coastalpayroll.com, and please put CB&T in the subject line, and just let us know what questions you have, or if there's anything that we can address for you. And with that, Steve, I will turn it back to you.
Super. Thanks very much, Jennifer, for a very informative webinar. And I want to again thank everyone who took time out of their busy day to join us for HR Trends for Employers in 2025. As Jen mentioned, we will be distributing this presentation to all attendees and also posting it on LinkedIn, the Coastal Payroll website, and you are welcome to forward this presentation along to any interested parties that were unable to join us today. And finally, and probably most importantly, I encourage everyone to reach out to Jennifer and the Coastal Payroll team with any questions or strategic advice on how to manage your HR needs. You will not be disappointed. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you, Steve.